With today's maps, you can see virtually anybody's house just by knowing exactly where they are. But back in the day, things were very, very different. In fact, the way that people looked at the world was so different that it took innovation for someone to even think that we should put down a map that displays the whole world. Some of the earliest maps that you see displaying the entire Earth have so many gaps in it that it just makes you realize how much the information we know today was just inputted and inputted. Later maps start to show detail and even cover the entire circumference. But instead of talking about this, let's talk about a specific time, 900 AD. Let's talk about the Muslims and how they saw the earth. And if we can see how they saw Africa in particular, especially when they sit down and describe the people of the world. Did they describe the world that is similar to ours or different? Did they mention anybody outside of the black people being native to Africa? To accomplish this task, we will need the help of a scholar called Al-Masudi. He was a historian, a geographer, and a traveler. And so some of these places he saw with his own eyes. In the West, he is known as the Herodotus of the Arabian world. Now, funny enough, he wrote a book called The Meadows of Gold, and in there he details things better than Herodotus. In fact, Herodotus has a lot of gaps in his summations. But here we have someone who is very sure about what the hell he is talking about. And we shall read. Chapter 7. A comprehensive view of accounts of the seas, of their wonders, and of their nations who live in islands or on the coast. The relative position and dignity of various kings, the history of Spain and other countries, the places and substances which yield perfumes, the various kinds of perfume. In the preceding pages of this work, we have given a general account of the seas, both those which are in communication with each other and those which are separated. Here we will recapitulate all the accounts which we possess, connected with the Abyssinian Sea, speaking at the same time of the kings and kingdoms situated on the sea, also of their respective position and other matters of interest. We repeat that the seas of China, India, Faris, and Yemen are connected and form only one mass of water. The difference of the currents and height of the water is to be attributed to the direction of the winds, the season when they rise, and other causes. The Persian Sea is most stormy and most dangerous for navigation at the time when the Indian Sea is quiet, and again the Persian Sea is quiet, when the Sea of India is boisterous, stormy, dark, and rough. The Sea of the Faris begins to be stormy when the sun enters into the sign Virgo about the time of autumnal equinox. It continues so, and storms increase every day until the sun comes into the sign Pisces. It is roughest at the end of autumn, when the sun is the sign Sagittarius. Then it becomes more quiet until the sun enters again into Virgo, and it is most quiet at the end of spring. When the sun is in Gemini, the Indian Sea is stormy till the sun enters into the sign of Virgo. Then begins the navigation on it. For it is easiest when the sun is in Sagittarius. They sail all the year round on the Persian Sea from Oman to Sharaf, which is a distance of 160 farsings, and from Siraf to El Bashra, which is a voyage of 140 farsings. But at this time it is not navigable excepting in the two mentioned routes. or to neighboring harbors. Abu Mashir, the astrologer, confirms in his great introduction to astronomy what we have said, that the stormy and quiet seasons on these seas begin when the sun is in the above mentioned signs of the zodiac. And he relates further that it is impossible to sail from Oman on the Sea of India in the Terma, except with the first rate vessels and light cargoes. These vessels are called Edtemerhans. In India, it's at that time winter and the rainy season. For Kanun and the month Shobat are their summer months, our winter being their summer, whilst the month Tammuz and Ab, which are summer months with us, are their winter. This change of seasons is the case in all towns of India, as Sindh, and the neighboring countries through the whole extent of the sea. From this circumstance, that their winter is our summer, the saying has its origin. That is to say, he wintered in India. This is owing to the difference of the distance from the sun. Pearl fishing in the sea of Faras is carried on from the beginning of Nisan to the end of Alul, but there is no pearl fishing from Alul to Nisan. The places where pearls are found in the sea have been named in the preceding pages of this book. There do not exist pearls in any other but the Abyssinian Sea, near the coast of the countries of Karak, Kotor, Oman, Serendib, and other places. In our former works, we have mentioned how the pearls grow and the various opinions on the subject. For some believe that they are produced by rain, whilst others maintain that their formation is independent of rain. We have described the pearls, both the old and the new ones, which are called that, but generally known under the name of this. The flesh and grease, which are in mother of pearl, are of an animal which has an anxiety of a mother, for the pearls that are in it at the approaching of the divers. We have given a description of pearl fishing. The divers must not eat any other food but fish, dates, or what is prepared of grain. Their ears are split to give a passage to the breath instead of breathing through the nostrils, for they put a little ball of tortoise shell into the nostrils. And they put cotton with a little oil into their ears, and when they walk at the bottom of the sea, they let the oil ascend to receive by this means a glimpse of light. Their feet and legs are blackened with soot, for the marine animals of which divers are afraid are shy of soot. Their voice sounds like the barking of dogs. The sound passes through the water till it reaches the ear. In our former works, we have given a full account of many curious matters connected with divers, pearl fishing, the pearls, and the animals that produce them. Also, of the description, marks, prices, size, and weight of pearls. This sea begins from El Bashra and El Obala and extends along El Bahrain from the sea marks of El Bashra. Then comes the sea of Ladiwa of the Laccadives. On this sea, Safura, Sabura, Tana, and Sindabar, Kanbayat, and other places of India and Esind are situated. Then comes the Sea of Horkand, then the Sea of Killa, which is also spelled Kola, and of the islands, then the Sea of Kardebin, then the Sea of Esinf, from which the Sinfi alloys has its name, for it comes from thence, then the Sea of China, which is the Sea of Sahu, and there is no sea beyond it. We have said that the Persian Gulf begins from the sea marks of El Bashra and a place called El Kenkela. There are marks of wood erected in the sea to ensure the navigation of Oman, which is a distance of 300 farsings. On the coast of this sea are Faris and El Bahrain. from Oman, the capital of which is Soha, which the Persians call Mezun, to Al Muscat, which is a village where the sailors take in water from the fresh water wells which are there, are 50 farsings from Muscat to the promontory of El Jomjama, are also 50 farsings. This is the limit of the Sea of Faris, the whole length of which is 400 farsings. This is the division recognized by sailors, the promontory of El Jomjama. The promontory of El Jomjama is a mountain which stands in connection with the desert Esh Sheher and El Akef in Yemen. No one knows to what distance the sand extends under the water, but it is most copious under the promontory of El Jomjama. There are, as we have said, mountains in the sea, under water, like those on the land, and they are called in the Mediterranean Sofala. Such a Sofala is in a place which is known by the name of the coast of Salukiat in the Byzantine Empire. It extends under water nearly as far as the Isle of Cyprus, and the greater part of the shipwrecks in the Mediterranean happen there. The sailors have in every sea peculiar expression by which they understand each other. From the promontory of El Jomjoma, the vessels enter from the Sea of Faris into the second sea, which has the name Ladua. Its depth is unfathomable, its extent cannot be measured, and the mass of the water is beyond calculation. Many sailors believe that no description can comprehend all its parts, it being of almost an endless extent, as we have already stated. The vessels cross it in 2 or 3 months, or in 1 month, as they have the wind. On the side of this sea extend the sea and country of the Zanj. This sea has not much ambergris, for it is mostly thrown on the coast of the Zanj and of Esher in Arabia. The inhabitants of Esher are of a tribe of Kodaban, Malekben, Himyar, and of the other Arabic tribe. The inhabitants of the Arabic origin in this country, which is also known under the name of Al-Mara, are called the people of hair and body. Their language differs from pure Arabic. The difference consists in using shin instead of kaf. For instance, this sentence, which is the same as that sentence. The same in the case in other phrases. They are a poor and needy people. They have a sort of camel called Mori camel. It goes as fast as the Bedouin camel, or even faster, as some think. On these they ride along their coast, and when the camel comes from Ambergris, which has been thrown out by the sea, it kneels down, for it is trained and taught to do so. Thus the rider can pick it up. The Ambergris, which is found on the coast and on the island and coast of Ezanj, is the best. It is round, of a blue color, and is the size of an ostrich egg, or smaller. There is a lot of ambergris, which is brought on the shore by a fish called whale, of which we have spoken. When the sea is stormy, pieces of ambergris are thrown up from the bottom of the sea, as big as mountains or smaller, as we have described. This fish devours the ambergris, which causes death, and it floats on the surface of the water. When people of Ezanj or others observe the whale, they throw hooks and ropes on it from their boats, open its belly, and take the ambergris. The ambergris found in the belly of the fish has foetid smell and is known to the perfume of El Iraq and Faris under the name of El Mand. But that which is found on the back of the fish is delicious and exquisite. Its quality depends on the length of time which it has been in the entrails of the fish. Between the third sea, which is the Sea of Horkend, and the second, which is the Sea of Ladua, are many islands, and they form the division between these two seas. Some say there are about 2,000, but in fact there are no more than 1,900, every of one which is cultivated. All these islands are ruled by a woman, for it is an ancient habit with them not to have a man as a sovereign. These islands yield much ambergris, which is thrown on the shore by the sea. It is sometimes the size of the largest rocks. I have learned from several sailors of Saraf and Oman when I visited these two towns, and from others who used to sail to these islands, that the ambergris grows in the bottom of the sea and is of various kinds, as there are various sorts of agaluchi. It is white, black, spongy, and the like. And when the sea is strong, it throws up rocks and stones, and with them ambergris. The inhabitants of these islands are united under one government. They are very numerous and have immense armies. The distance from one island to another is 1 mile, or 1, 2, or 3 farsakhs. Their palm trees is the coconut palm, but they have no date palms. Persons who understand the generation of animals and the vegetation of plants believe that the coconut tree is originally the same as the wild palm tree, which yields the fruit called makul, but that the soil of India impressed its own character on it when it was transplanted, and that it changed into the coconut plant. We entered in our own work called Axioms of Experience upon the influence which the climate and the air of every part of the globe exercise on the nature of men and animals and vegetation. Thus it is to be ascribed of the influence of the climate that the Turks have peculiar features and small eyes, and even their camels bear the stamp of the climate. Their legs are short, their neck thick, and their hair white. The country of Yajuj and Majuj partakes of the same character. There could be brought forward many other examples which have been pointed out by persons who possess a knowledge of the races that inhabit the east and west as we have described. No other island of the sea can boast of such skillful artisan as the inhabitants of this group, in all arts and trades, as in making cloth instruments and so forth. The treasures of this country consist of shells. These shells from the habitation of certain animals, and when there is no money in the public treasury, the inhabitants receive orders to cut branches of the coconut tree and to not throw them on the water with the leaves. These animals fasten on the branches and are thus gathered. Then they are spread upon the sand, on the beach, and as the animal perishes in the sun, the shell remains empty. So they fill the public treasury. These islands have together the name of Ez Zanjit. They export the greatest quantity of coconuts. The most important of these islands is Serendib. At a distance of about 1,000 farangs from Serendib is an archipelago called Eraman. These islands are cultivated, have many gold mines, and are governed by kings. In the same sea is Fansar, whence the Fansari camphor has its name. In years in which hurricanes, storms, inundations, and earthquakes are frequent, camphor is most abundant, and when these calamities are of less frequency, camphor is scarce. In almost all the islands which we have named, they eat coconuts from these islands. Bokam and Ruscus are exported. They have also gold and elephants. Some of the inhabitants are cannibals. This archipelago stands in connection with Al Jebela, which have a population of a very singular appearance. They bring in the boats and burgers, betel, and other articles. To exchange these articles for iron and some clothes. They do not employ money. Next to them are islands called Andaman, which are inhabited by Negroes of strange appearance and look. Their hair is woolly, and each of their feet is larger than 1 cubit. They have no vessels, and if a shipwrecked sailor is thrown on their shore, they devour him. They do the same with the crew of vessels if they land there. I have been told by many sailors that they have sometimes seen a small strip of white cloud over the sea, from which a long white tongue comes forth, stretching down to the sea. And when it reaches the water, the sea rises towards it in a terrible hurricane, which destroys everything that may come within its reach, and it is followed by a heavy shower. The fourth sea is that of Killa Bar, as we have said. It has also the name of the sea Kola. The water in the sea is shallow. The shallower sea is, the more frequent are accidents, and the greater is the danger. In the sea are many islands and sedadi. This word is a plural of sadi, so the sailors call the land between two straits if they have to pass it. Several islands and mountains of the sea are worth notice, but our object is to give general ideas and not to enter into detail. The fifth sea, which is known under the name of Kurda, is equally shallow and full of mountains and islands, from which the camphor and the essential oil of camphor are procured. Camphor has little essential oil, but much vehicle, from which it is hardly being extracted. These islands are inhabited by various nations. One race is called El Mat. They have crisp hair and strange features. They come in boats to the vessels which pass by and throw a sort of poison arrow. Beyond these people and between the country of Kola are mines of white lead and mountains rich in silver, which contain also gold and lead, but it cannot be separated. Next follows the Sea of Es Sinf, according to the division which we have just made. In this sea are the dominions of the Maharaj, the king of the islands. The population and number of troops of his kingdom cannot be counted, and the islands under his scepter are so numerous that the most fast-sailing vessel is not able to go round them in 2 years. This king is in possession of several kinds of spices and perfumes, and no kingdom has more natural resources nor more articles for exportation than this. Among these are camphor, aloes, gilliflowers, sandalwood, betel, nuts, mace, cardamoms, cubobs, and the like. The limits of the sea, which extends from these islands towards the Sea of China, are not known, and its extent is unexplored. In some parts of this island are high mountains with a dense population who have slit ears and a white complexion. Their faces look like a piece of a hammered shield. They wear their hair long as we wear our beards. From these mountains issues fire by day and night. By day it has a dark appearance, and at night it shines red. It rises to such a height that it reaches the region of the heavens. The explosion is accompanied with a noise like the loudest thunder. Sometimes a strange sound proceeds from these volcanoes, which is indicative that their king will die. And if their sound is lower, it foretells the death of one of their chiefs. They know the meaning of these sounds by long habit and experience. This is one of the great chimneys of the earth. At no great distance is another island from which constantly the sound of drums, lutes, fifes, and other musical instruments, and the noise of dancing and various amusements are heard. Sailors who have passed this place believe that the Dajjal occupies this island. To the dominions of the Maharaj belongs Sarira, the extent of which is estimated at 400 farsings. The whole island is well cultivated. He is also in possession of an island of Ez Zanij, Ramni, and many other islands which are not known to us. The Maharaj is the lord of the sixth sea, which is the sea of Es Sinf. The seventh sea is the Sea of China, which is also called the Sea of Siu. This is a stormy and dangerous sea, and there is a great deal of that. This word means a great ranging on the sea, and is one of the maritime terms which are common among the sailors of every sea. In this sea are many mountains, between which the vessels must pass. When a great storm comes on, black figures rise from the water about 4 or 5 spans long, and they look like little Abyssinians. They mount on the vessels, but however numerous they may be, they do not harm. When sailors observe them, they are sure that a storm is near, for their appearance is a certain sign of a gale. They prepare themselves for the storm, which will either be their ruin or they will be saved from it. Those who are to be saved frequently observe something like a luminous bird at the top of the mast. The sailors of the Sea of China and of the whole Abyssinian Sea call the mast, and the sailors of the Mediterranean call it. This appearance on the top of the mast is of such brightness that the eye cannot behold it, nor can they make out what it is. The moment it appears, the sea becomes quiet, the gale lulls, and the waves subside. Then this brightness vanishes, and no one can perceive how it comes or how it disappears. It is a sign of safety and the assurance that they have escaped. What we have related is confirmed by the sailors and merchants of El Bashra, Oman, Siraf, and others who have navigated the sea, and however marvelous it sounds, it may be true that God sends such a sign, for his servants are saved through his power from the dangers of the sea, and guided in their voyage. In this sea is a sort of crab, of the length of 1 cubit, or a span, more or less. If it comes forth from the sea in a rapid motion and goes on shore, it loses the qualities of an animal and is petrified. This stone forms an ingredient in the cholera and generally in the medicines of the eye. It is therefore well known. There are wonderful accounts reported respecting the Sea of China and those which are in connection with it. We refer the reader to our books on these subjects, which we have frequently had occasion to bring under his notice. Beyond the coast of China is no other kingdom known or described, excepting the country of Es-Sabal and the islands which belong to it. No one from El Iraq or any other place of the West frequents this country. The air of this country is wholesome, the water good, the soil fertile, and the precious stone are brilliant and genuine. Hence the country is rich, and it seldom happens that any of the inhabitants leave their native soil. They are allies of the Chinese, and the kings of both countries constantly exchange presents. Some say they are the descendants of Aber, who settled there in the same way as the Chinese took possession of their country. In China are many rivers, which may be compared with the Tigris and Euphrates. They come from the country of the Turks et Tibet and of the Sogad. The Sogad live between Bokhara and Samarkand. In their country is the mountain En Nashba, from which fire rises in the summer at night, which may be seen at a distance of nearly 100 farsakhs, and by day smoke issues, which is so dense that the rays of the sun cannot penetrate through it. This mountain yields Sal Amoanic. Travelers in summer take their road from Khorasan to China by this mountain, for there is a valley through it, 40 or 50 miles long. At the entrance of the valley wait some men who offer themselves to carry the baggage. If they are well paid, they use sticks to drive the passengers on their journey, for any stoppage or rest would be fatal to the traveler, in consequence of the irritation which the ammoniacal vapors of this valley produce on the brain, and on account of the heat. The way becomes more and more narrow till the travelers come to the end of their perilous passage. Here are pits with water in which they throw themselves to obtain relief from the depressing influence of the vapors of sal ammoniac and of the heat of the air. No animal passes through the valley in summer, nor anybody who is excited by fanaticism. The Solomoniac throws out flames in summer, in winter, much snow and rainfall, which extinguish the heat and flames. At that time, men and animals can pass it without inconvenience. When travelers arrive in the Chinese territory, they are beaten as in passing. The distance from Khorasan to China through the pass just mentioned is about 40 days' journey, partly through steppes, solitudes, and deserts. The other road, which is used for animals, is about 4 months' journey. But on that, the travelers enjoy the protection of several Turkish tribes. I have seen a very intelligent and agreeable man at bulk who had made a journey to China several times, but he had never been at sea. I have seen many other persons who went from the country of the Sogad through the mountains of En Nesheder to Et Tibet and China. Khorasan is contagious in India and the Sindh. In the direction of El Mansura and El Multan, the same caravan goes from Sindh to Khorasan, and the caravans of India go in the same manner into this country, as far as Zabalistan, which has the name of Firuz ibn Kaik. This is an extensive country. It has many astonishingly strong castles and is densely inhabited by nations of different tongues. Historians do not agree respecting their origin. Some trace their descent from the Yafet Bennu, and others connect them with the first Persians, giving a long genealogy. The country of Et Tibet is separated and distinct from China. The rulers of Et Tibet are the Himyarites, who were led there by one of the Tobas, as we shall relate in the history of Yemen, to which we shall devote some of the following pages of this book, and it is to be found in our Akbar Ez-Zamin. The population of Et Tibet consists partially of nomads and partially of settled inhabitants. The wandering Tibetans are of Turkish origin and so numerous that they cannot be counted. They yield to no nomadic nation of the Turks and are respected by other Turkish hordes. For in ancient times the king was of their horde, and it is generally believed among all Turks that they will again obtain the royal power. The country of Et Tibet has some peculiarities in its air, water, soil, plains, and mountains which deserve notice. There, men lives gay and full of cheerfulness, which is neither interrupted by sorrows nor cares, nor by reflection. The varieties of fruits, flowers, meadows, and rivers of this country are innumerable. The nature of this country predisposes men and animals to be light-hearted and cheerful. You will not even see old men and old women dull, but old and young are equally gay. This cheerfulness, joviality, and gaiety led them to indulge in music and dancing, and it goes so far that the relations of persons who die do not feel such deep sorrows as other people feel at the loss of a beloved individual or in the absence of one to whom they are attached. But, notwithstanding this levity, they are affectionate to each other. This country has the name of Tibet, after those Himyarites who had settled there. This is expressed in the poem of Dibil ben Ali el-Koza, in which he lowers the Qomite, boasting of the superiority of the Khatan tribes above the Nizar tribe. They have put an inscription on the gate of Mirror and on the gate of China, Both these are our inscriptions. They have named Samarkand after their king, Shumer, and they have colonized Tibet. We shall relate in the chapter on the history of the kings of Yemen the principal events in the history of the kings of Tibet and of those made excursions. Tibet borders on the other side of China and on the other side of India, Khorasan, and the Turkish steppes. It comprises extensive cultivated lands and many towns, some of which are fortified. In ancient times, they gave to their kings the title Tobas in imitation of the title of the king of Yemen. But as times changes, everything the Himyarites' language was lost amongst them and exchanged for a language which is similar to those of the neighboring countries and the nations, and they called their king Kakan. The Tibetan and Chinese musk comes from contiguous countries in which the musk deer lives, and the superiority of the Tibetan musk over the Chinese musk depends on two causes. The musk deer of Tibet lives upon spikenard and all sorts of aromatic herbs, whilst the Chinese musk deer has none of these odoriferous plants. Further, the Tibetans leave the musk in the bladder as it is in its natural state, and the Chinese take it out from the bladder and adulterate it with blood and other sophistications. Besides, the Chinese musk is imported to us by sea and is thus exposed to moisture and different air. When the Chinese have spoiled their musk by adulteration, they put it into pots and bottles, which they carefully close, and in this state it is imported into the Muslim territory by the seaports of Oman, Faris, El Irik, and other large towns. The musk which the zebit yields immediately after it has come to maturity is the best and most exquisite, such as the musk of Tibet is. There is no difference between the musk gazelles and the common gazelles as to form, appearance, color, or horn. The sole difference that exists is that they have canine teeth resembling the projecting teeth of an elephant. The musk deer has two such teeth projecting from the jaw, which are very strong, white, and straight, and about one span long, more or less. The Chinese and Tibetans set nooses, nets, and traps to catch the musk deer. Sometimes they shoot them with arrows. They pull them down and cut off their musk bladder. The blood in the navel has a fetid smell, and as long as it is fresh, it has not only no fragrance, but is very offensive. After it has been kept for some time, it loses that offensive smell and it becomes, under the influence of air, musk. It undergoes exactly the same process as fruits if they have been taken from the tree before they have their flavor. The best musk is that which is found in the navel of the animal and matured in the bladder till it has its fragrancy. The blood is accumulated in the navel of the animal. When its particles have undergone a change, there it receives an agreeable smell. The animal, feeling some inconvenience, rubs its navel on rocks and stones, which are warmed by the sun, for this excites a pleasing sensation. By this means is discharged and adheres to the stones. The sensation may be compared to the relief felt if a tumor or boil in which much matter has been collected is discharged. When the musk bladder is emptied of its contents, it cicatrizes and the blood accumulates there a second time, as in the first instance. The Tibetans go out to the rocks and the mountains, and there they find the blood congealed on the stones, which has been matured by nature in the animal and dried by the sun after it has been exposed to its influence. This is the most exquisite musk, and is in gathering put into the mask bladders which have been taken from hunted deer and brought for the purpose to the spot where the musk is gathered. This is the musk used by the Tibetan princess, and which they send as a present to each other, but it is seldom exported from their country. There are many towns in Tibet, and the musk is called after the town or district from whence it comes. The kings of China, of the Turks, of India, of the Zanj, and all other kings of the earth looked up to the king of the climate Kishwar of Babel with great respect, for he is the first king on earth and occupies the same position with respect to others as the moon with the respect to the stars. For his country is the noblest and most populous. He is the richest of all sovereigns. He is most favored by nature, and he has a powerful and firm government. This was the case in ancient times, but now this description does not at all agree with the sovereigns of this country. The ancient kings of Babel had the title of Shahan Shah, which means the king of kings. He has the same position with regard to the rest of the world as the heart in the body and the buckle in the necklace. Next ranks the king of India, who is the king of wisdom and elephants, for it was acknowledged amongst the Korswa that wisdom comes from India. After the king of India ranks the king of China, who is the king of the wise government, good institutions, and perfection in arts. No king on earth pays more attention to internal government than the king of China, nor keeps any other the citizens, soldiers, and persons in office better under control. His people are brave, strong, and powerful. He is able to defend his country with well-equipped armies. His troops receive pay, as it was the case under the kings of Babel. The first rank after the king of China is claimed by the king of the Turks, who resides in the city of Kafristan and rules over the Turkish nations called Tajizgiz. He is called the king of lions and of horses, for there is no nation on earth braver nor more lion-like in shedding blood than his subjects, nor has any country greater abundance of horses than his. His country is in between China and the steppes of Khorasan. The title of this monarch is Ikrin. The Turks have several kings who rule over different hordes and are not under submission to the Erkan, but there is no other Turkish king who excels him. The Byzantine king who follows next is named the King of Men, for there are no men on earth better formed than his subjects. This graduation was recognized in ancient times, but subsequently the kings of the earth have become more equal in their positions. A man who takes a very correct view of the history of the world describes thus in some poem, the kings of the world. There are two famous palaces on earth, the Iwan and the Gomden, and there are only two great royal families, the Sassanins and Khatanites. Faris is the preference called the earth, and Babel the climate. The site of the Islam is Mecca, and Khorasan is the world. The two royal sites, Bokhara and Balkh, form the two corners and render it formidable. El Bailakan and Tabaristan are its frontiers. Erai is its Sharwan. In society, some men are distinguished by higher rank as the Morzabin, the Batrik, and the Tarkhan. The title of the Persian king is Kisra. The Romans call their monarch Kaiser. The Abyssinians Najashi, and the Turks Kakan. The king of Sicily and Africa in the Maghreb had before the Islam the title Jirgis, and the king of Spain had the name Lodric, which was common to all the kings of Spain. The inhabitants of this country are said to belong to the nation of El Ishban, who are the descendants of Japheth ben Nu and are spread over this country. But the more generally received opinion amongst the Muslims in Spain is that Lodric was of the Galatian nation, who are a French race. He was the last sovereign and was killed by Tariq, the freed slave of Musa bin Nosar, when he conquered Spain and entered Tulaitila, which was the metropolis and the residence of the king. Through this city runs a large river which has the same name, Taja. It comes from the country of the Galatians and the Basques. They are a great nation ruled by the king, who goes as frequently to war with the Muslims in Spain as the Galatians and the French. This river falls into the Atlantic Ocean. It is one of the most celebrated rivers in the world. In the middle of its course, it passes the town of Toledo. Over the Tigris goes the arched bridge As Saif, which was constructed by ancient kings. It is one of the most remarkable buildings on earth and much more surprising than the bridge Sajine on the frontier between Mesopotamia and Byzantine Empire, not far from Samite site. In the commentary of Sharuja, this and the city of Toledo are fortified and have strong walls. The Mohammedan inhabitants of this city rebelled against the Umayyads after the conquest and defended themselves 2 years with success against them. But in 315, the town was taken by Abdur Rahman bin Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Muhammad bin Abdur Rahman bin El Hakam bin Hisham bin Abdur Rahman bin Muammar bin Hisham bin Abdul Malik bin Merwin bin El Hakam, and he is at present king of Spain. Many buildings of this city were destroyed when it was taken. Cordoba was made the metropolis of Spain and continues to be so to this day. It is 7 days' journey from Toledo and about 3 days from the sea. 1 day's journey from the sea is the town Ishbila. The cultivation and towns of Spain extend about 2 months' journey, and amongst them there are nearly 40 renowned cities. The Umayyads in Spain are called the sons of the caliphs, but they do not give the title Khalifa, for no prince has a claim to the title in their opinion, who is not a master of the 2 holy cities. Abd Rahman bin Moawiyah bin Hisham bin Abd el-Malik bin Merwan went to Spain in the Rebi of 137 and died in 171. He was succeeded by his son Hisham bin Abd Rahman. His son El-Hakam bin Hisham, nearly 20 years at present, reigns Abd Rahman bin Muhammad in Spain, as we have said. He has a very good government. He made, in 327, an expedition against the Christians with more than 100,000 men and encamped before the capital of the kingdom of the Galatians, which is called Sumara, and surrounded the 7 walls, which form one of the most wonderful buildings raised by ancient kings. From one wall to another is a considerable distance in which run ditches filled with water. He conquered 2 walls, and then the besieged made a sally upon the assailant and killed as many as they could reach. The number of those who fell under the sword or were drowned amounted to 40,000 men. This gave to the Galatians and Basques the superiority over the Muslims, and they took the towns and frontiers towards France from them. On this frontier is the city of Orbuna, which the Muslims lost in 300, with other towns and fortresses, but the town is still existing after their conquest to this day, 332. In the eastern part of Spain, on the Mediterranean, is the city of Tortuga, and a little further north is Faraga. On a large river, then Larida, and still furthermore lies the last mentioned town is on the French frontiers. This is the most narrow pass of the Pyrenees. A short time previous to the beginning of the 4th century of the Hijra, ships landed in Spain, which had thousands of men on board who made incursions on the coast. The Muslims of Spain believed that they were a Magian nation who were in the habit of visiting these countries every 2 centuries. They came from a gulf of the ocean and not from the strait of which the pillars of copper stand. I suppose this gulf is connected with the Sea of Myotis and the Pontus, and that the invading nations were the Russians, of whom we have spoken, for no other nation sails in the seas which stand in connection with the ocean. In the Mediterranean, not far from Crete, planks of vessels of Indian plantain wood have been found, which were cut and joined with fibers of coconut tree. It was evident that they were of wrecked vessels and had been a long time in water. Vessels of this description are only found in the Abyssinian Sea, for the vessels of the Mediterranean and of the West are all joined with nails. In the Abyssinian Sea, iron nails would not be applicable for shipbuilding, for the water of the sea corrodes the iron, and the nails become thinner and weaker in the water. Hence the planks are joined with fibers and besmeared with grease and quicklime. This is a proof that the sea have a communication. The sea towards China and the country of Esila goes all around the country of the Turks and has a communication with the Sea of the West. Although some straits of the great ocean on the coast of Syria and Burgos has been found, thrown on shore, although it has never been a production of the Mediterranean since ancient times, and it is possible that it came there through the same way by which we suppose that the planks of the vessels came from the Sea of China. God knows best. The Sea of Spain abounds in ambergris, and it is exported from Spain to Egypt and other countries from the coast of the sea called Shantaran and Shodana. The ounce in Baghdad weight is paid with 3 mitkals of gold in Spain, and in Egypt with 10 dinars, although it is of an inferior quality. It is probable that the pieces of ambergris found on the Byzantine coasts have been propelled there by the waves, for the Sea of Spain is in communication with the sea that washes these coasts. In Spain are considerable mines of silver and quicksilver, and since this is the best quicksilver that exists, it is exported into all Muslim and not Muslim countries. Other articles of exportation from Spain are saffron and ginger roots. The principal ingredients of perfumes are 5 musk, camphor, aloes, ambergris, and saffron. They all come from India, except saffron and ambergris, which are found in the country of the Zanj, in Inshare, and Spain. The kinds of spices are 25: the spikenard, gilliflower, sandalwood, betel nut, the rose, cassia, the bark of pomegranate, the finest species of cinnamon, cardamoms, kubob, a species of cinnamon, the berries of sapa, the roots of the nymphea, a species of grain resembling cherry stones, saffron of Yemen, costus root, clove, the gum of the lada, citrix, the seed of Satoniasum, calamus, aromaticus, orobanche. We have described the mines of silver, gold, quicksilver, and the place where all sorts of perfumes are found in our work, the Akbar, as Emin. We may therefore dispense with entering further on this subject on this book. The accounts which are reported respecting the Sea of the West are marvelous, particularly those which regard the sea that washes the cultivated district of the Sudan and the extreme west. Men who are possessed of an extensive knowledge of our globe say that the Abyssinians in the Sudan occupy a country of 7 years' journey, that Egypt forms the 60th part of the country of the Sudan, and that the country of Sudan forms only a small portion of the surface of the earth, the dimensions of which is 500 years' journey. 1/3 of it is inhabited, 1/3 is desert, and 1/3 is covered with seas. The country of the Sudan borders on the most distant plains of the dominions of Idris, ben Abdullah, ben El Hassan, ben El Hussein, ben Ali, ben Abi Taleb in the Maghreb, which is the country of Talisman, Taharat, and Faiz. Then comes Sas el Adna, which is about 2,300 miles from El Kauran and 20 days from Sas el Exa. The cultivation extends without interruption as far as the Wadi Ar Ramel and Qasr el Aswad. Farther on come desert of sand, in which one finds a town of the name Medinat en Noas Wakibab Rasas. Musa ben Nosar has penetrated as far as Medina in Noah under the reign of Abd el-Malik ben Merwan. The wonderful things which he has seen are related in several books which are known to everyone. Some are of opinion that the town which has been stormed by Musa is in the plains of Ard al-Ghabri, which extends of Spain. Maimun bin Abd el-Waheb bin Abd Rahman bin Rostam el-Farsi, who was of Ibadian sect, has spread there the tenets of the Kawarji. Some historians believe that the inhabitants are remnants of the Ishban who have cultivated those countries. Maimun had several wars with the Talibites. We shall speak on the different opinions respecting the Ishban in another chapter of this book. Some connect them with the Persians, deriving the name Ispahan. In these places of the Maghreb are found some of the sect of the Kawarji called the Hurarians. They possess several cities like the town of Dara, which has large silver mines. This town lies towards El Jasdar and is contiguous with the country of the Abyssinians, with whom the inhabitants are at constant war. In our book called The Akbar Az-Zaman, we have related the wars of the Maghreb, and we have described the towns of that country. We have named the sect of the Kawarji as the Ibadians, Sophrians, and the Mutazilite sects who live there, and we have related the wars which arose between the followers of those two religious opinions. We have also acquainted the reader with the history El Aglabit Temimi, who was appointed by El Mansur over the Maghreb, of his residence in Africa, of the state of his affairs during the reign of Rashid, and the succession of his son as an independent prince over Africa and other provinces of the Maghreb, till Abu Nasr Ziadatullah ben Abdullah ben Ibrahim ben Ahmed El Aglab. One of his successors was expelled by Abu Abdullah the Mutasib, who was a Sufi and an emissary of the governor of El Mahdiya. He drove him out with the assistance of the Ketama and other tribes of the Berbers. During the caliphate of El Muqtadir, all this is related in the Akbar Ezaman, where we also describe his march to Raqqa. This man had originally been Motasib at Romez in the Awaz. We now resume our subject and continue to name the kings, postponing the description of the kingdoms situated on the Abyssinian Sea, which we intended hereafter to introduce to the notice of the reader. The king of the Zanj is Walfiman. The king of El Lan is Kerkendaj. The king of El Hiraj were the Normans and the Mondaris. The king of the mountainous country of the Tabarstan was Pharaon, and El Jebel is named after him and his sons to this day. The king of India is Balara. The king of Kinuj, who is one of the kings of Esind, is Buddha. This is a title generally to all kings of El Kinaj. At present, the city is under the scepter of the Islam, for it forms a province of El Multan. Through this town passes one of the 5 rivers which form together the river Marine in Esind, which is considered by El Jahid as the Nile and by others as the Jaihun of Khorasan. This Buddha, who is the king of El Kinuj, is an enemy of the Balaha, the king of India, the king of Al Kandahar, who is one of the kings of Esind ruling over this country, is called Jahaj. This name is common to all sovereign of that country. From his dominions come the river Raid, one of the 5 rivers which form the marine of Esind. Kandahar is called the country of the Rabut. Another river of Punjab is called Hatil. It comes also from the mountains of Esind and runs through the country of Rabut, which is the country of El Kandahar. The 4th river of the Punjab comes from the country of Kabul and its mountains, which forms the frontier of Esind towards Bost, Ghazna, Nafs, Rochal, and the country of Rawan, which is the frontier of Sijistan. One of the 5 rivers comes from the country of Kashmir. The king of Kashmir has the name Rama, which is a general title for all kings. Kashmir is situated in the mountains of Esind and forms a powerful kingdom, which comprises from 60 to 70,000 towns and villages.